Miami obviously loses on Sunday Night Football to the Bills. Not only loses the AFC East, but now has to go on the road to the Chiefs. And Miami dealing with tons of injuries on both sides of the ball. The defense feels like an utter wasteland at this point. Chubb and Phillips already out for the year. Van Ginkel gets hurt, has to leave last night's game. We'll see about Xavier Howard. We feel like he'll probably play, but we'll see over the course of the week. We'll also have to wait on Waddle and Mostert for the Dolphins on offense. And the Chiefs sat a bunch of key players yesterday, and they're 13-12. What a stupid game, fake game, win over Easton Stick, Gift Smith, and the LA Chargers. Also, the temperature's expected to be like absolutely frigid on Saturday night. So here's the Dolphins offense. As Tyreek Hill does return to Arrowhead, though it's going to be interesting, right? Going to be very cold for Tua and the Miami offense. So KC Ken, 3.5 against Miami. Total is 44. Pen, pencil, blood, or blank for Saturday night.
This has a chance, I think, to be one of the 3 coldest games in the history of the NFL postseason. Like, we're not hyperbole. There's an extreme cold front that's going to go through Kansas City around the time of the game, almost assuredly, and the median temperature is going to be 2. That's not wind chill, it's just 2. And then the wind chill's negative 78 or something like that. I mean, it's really going to be brutal. Let's take a team from South Florida and put them in that situation with a quarterback who's folded in every big spot anyway. How do you think this is going to go? And they can't rush the other guy who just happens to be the best player of all time. Never in a billion years would I bet Miami in this game. And I was prepared to, in a lot of situations, bet Miami in this game.
Yeah.
What if they look pretty good against Buffalo and they escape healthy and it's 3? And the weather's 38 or something. This just seems like the worst draw you could possibly have. And I'm not saying laying Kansas City is the best idea. It's built into this. This is 2. If there's no difference between these teams over the course of the season. It's what is unique about this game right now. It's the injuries for Miami. And there are so many of them, they should have a very significant impact on the point spread. But this is the way that this got set up kind of stinks. Because I think there's just no way you can play Miami in the game now. I don't think there's just any way. Maybe this can improve over the course of the week. Maybe Thursday, forecast better, injury report better, you get better news, but it can never be Miami. It's it's only Kansas City if you want to lay this kind of number.
Buffalo is a 10-point favorite against Pittsburgh. The total here is 35.5. So if you'd be so kind to play weatherman here for a moment, and then give us your early analysis and thoughts, any bets, the Bills and the Steelers.
Yeah, so in the Kansas City game against Miami, your concern there from a from a weather standpoint, is going to be temperature. It's going to be negative 50. Exaggeration, but it's going to be really, really cold. And that'll have a really strong impact on the game probably. Anybody who's watched these frigid NFL games know that the ball ends up being a cinder block, basically. This game, sure, going to be cold. The concern is the wind. And I got a note from somebody earlier in the show, 2 different people actually, who were just a release service, whatever, pick service, whatever you want to call this stuff, that is very popular, gave out the Lions and gave out the under in this game. And it's one of the reasons why it was bet so aggressively. And so you have, I think that combined with people trying to get ahead of a weather under anyway, people that aren't even connected to whatever this community is. And that in tandem just drove the absolute, this price just so far down in terms of the total. And it's because of the wind. I can give guesses. It's not even worth it. Astronomical wins projected potentially in this game. Can't throw the ball, can't kick the ball, can't do anything is possible in this game. So if you're wondering well, why did they give out the over on a Monday, or the under rather on a Monday? Why did it get bet so much even in addition to that? Because it's the move. It's not just that one thing. That's why. Everyone's trying to get ahead of the fact that we're going to get to the day of the game and you're not going to be able to pass the ball. I'll just add really quickly, if that's the case, this is not some super edge or whatever, because the prop markets aren't open yet for the game. I can't be we'll bet Josh Allen pass yards under. Be well, nothing's open. And by the time it's open, everyone's going to know that this is a thing. There are some markets open that I would call superlative markets for most pass yards in the postseason, most rushing yards in the postseason, most receiving yards in the postseason. If these 2 forecasts hold in Kansas City and Buffalo, it is a tremendous disadvantage to the quarterbacks that are playing in those games to win those superlative markets. Josh Allen could have the most pass yards anyway because the Bills could win the Super Bowl, but really eliminates his margin for error versus Josh Allen's like the co-favorite in those markets to have the most passing yards. It's Dak and then a very small gap and then him. Dak's playing in climate controlled temperatures for the next 2 weeks, and Josh Allen's playing in a game where you may not be able to throw the ball. So just like if we end up holding those forecasts, that would just be an example of like, we'll try to take that to some other markets and like see what it is. Does any place have like playoff specials for like highest scoring teams and all this? Like any of those kind of things are less likely to be impacted by like a weather move to the under as opposed to the game where it's going to be baked into the price. Let's do the 2 weather games, Will, here in about a minute. You said you like when you have kind of like fun playoff weather games. It's probably going to be insanely windy in Buffalo. We don't know that for a fact. It's Monday. The early forecast is kind of a disaster. Bills 9.5, 10, and 35.5 the total. And then Chiefs going to play in like negative temperatures against the Miami Dolphins, 3.5, 4, 44. Any reason to believe those games could get crazy? Dogs could win. Weather games, crazy stuff can happen in about a minute. So we save time for the other 2.
Yeah, I'm going to say no, that they don't get crazy, and chalk holds there. Pittsburgh at Buffalo, of course, on CBS and Paramount Plus streaming. I think you see, this total came down from 43 to like 35.5 in 12 hours. I mean, that is pretty crazy. Pittsburgh will be equipped for it, and they can run. But this Bills defense has been really good, and I think the Bills run game now under Joe Brady, they've really leaned on that, and they should be able to run against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's defensive statistics plummet off a cliff when they lose TJ Watt. And I think that is I don't think that's noise. I think that's legitimate. It's a signal. And then with Kansas City, they can move Travis Kelce around. I think it's going to be tough for them to just put Jalen Ramsey on Travis Kelce. This defense for the Dolphins so banged up. They lose Van Ginkel. They'd already lost Chubb. They'd already lost Phillips. I mean, they have no pass rush. And I feel like people are really sleeping on the idea of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid just flipping a switch on offense and getting hot. People would say, oh, that can't happen. Like, of course it can. Many, many lesser teams and players do it all the time.
I come out of the game almost thinking that both of these teams are kind of like DOA. And that doesn't mean that I think both.
At least.
Yeah. I'm not in. Like, I think the Bills are going to beat the Steelers. Like, the Dolphins seem like they're up against it in a big way. We'll talk about the game coming up in Kansas City on Saturday night. Just that, like, I think, and I actually had this, like, inner monologue last night and again this morning, because I think, like, old Nick. And I'm not even saying that like one way is right, and we'll see what plays out on the field. That old me would kind of think, well, Buffalo's ceiling is to be the best team, at least in the AFC. Maybe not better than San Francisco if the Niners play at their best. So I'd be thinking like, man, just get me to Buffalo at Baltimore. And, like, I can't wait to bet the Bills in that game because, like, I kind of want to see Buffalo win. Like, there's a downtrodden franchise. I'd like to see it happen. And obviously, like, I've already bet Buffalo to make the Super Bowl. But then, like, I watched the game last night, and I can't shake it, Ken, that this is just kind of, like, what they do. And the idea that they're just, like, not going to do that when it's what they do all the time, like, they're going to turn the ball over in excruciating fashion. Like, they're going to do stupid stuff during games, and you can survive that, I think, when you're playing a Dolphins team with all the injuries, and a Dolphins team that is, like, gets slammed whenever they step up in class. Can you do that on the road in Baltimore? Can you even do it if you host Kansas City? And, like, I want to see Buffalo get it done. I guess that's kind of like that was my impression leaving the game last night. So it does not mean I think Pittsburgh's going to beat them. I think Buffalo will win. Just that I don't know if Buffalo's going to get across the finish line for us, Ken, and get to the Super Bowl.